Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about how people worry about the things that don't matter when it comes to nutrition. And I do find it truly fascinating because, people will bring up all these different topics of why they don't eat this food or that. It's got possible arsenic in it, it's got herbicides, pesticides, all this other stuff, right? They'll bring up all this stuff about how they don't want foods that are GMO, and yet they still eat a garbage diet. And that's the thing that's fascinating. And this is like, when we talk about with lifting and other stuff in fitness, we'll say things like people will obsess over, spend 90% of their time worrying about things that only contribute to 10% of their results, and then they'll neglect the other stuff. Like we'll talk about someone avoiding just doing a big heavy barbell row while they spend some weird time worried about a single arm lat pull down with a cable pulling at the exact angle that the fibers align, right? And it sounds scientific and it sounds really good. People are like, oh yeah, there's some common sense, and oh yeah, it sounds scientific, but it's actually nonsense. Like, that's a complete waste of time that does nothing. And in fact, it literally means nothing as far as aligning fibers on the opposite end of a joint. Like, basic physics would tell you that it's stupid. Okay? Like, literal basic physics would tell you this is an idiotic idea that has no meaning. Okay? And it's the same when it comes to nutrition. People will worry about these things because, various conspiracies are out there, and people will talk about these things, and I know people who do this, but then I look at their diet and I'm like, but you eat a dumpster diet. Like, your diet looks like a trash dumpster. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, you eat garbage, and you're worried about whole foods like brown rice. Perfect example. I'm not going to eat that brown rice. Really? Brown rice is heavily associated with great health outcomes. Their explanations, well, it's got pesticides or herbicides because it's non-organic. Yeah, but it's well within your body's ability to handle it. And I think people forget that. If your body couldn't handle any toxins without you dying, you couldn't eat any table sugar, even the organic refined table sugar. It would kill you. What? Yeah. 2 spoonfuls of sugar a day would kill you within a matter of weeks. 1 alcoholic drink per week would kill you. Now, I'm not saying you should be consuming those things because those are part of, a trash dumpster diet. People who consume refined sugars and drink alcohol, even in moderation, I consider that to be a garbage diet. Okay? But they'll do these things, and they'll worry about this. The minuscule amounts of toxins that the FDA determined are generally okay. And they forget you're going to get exposed to some toxins every day, just breathing air, living, drinking water. We can handle certain amounts and still live to be 100. Again, people forget these things. So they're worried about the arsenic or the pesticides. They're worried it's non-GMO. But that's not been associated with negative health outcomes. Again, basic science. People worry about processes that don't cause any negatives. This food's been refined. Oh, those instant oats have been refined. Yes, they've been pre-cooked. Yes, they've had heat applied to them. You're going to cook it later. So how's that any different? And these are foods that, again, are associated with great health outcomes. These are healthy foods. These fall into the category of health food, yet they'll nitpick. Right? But again, the same people who do this, they act completely insanely orthorexic about details that are of such minor importance in extremely healthy foods. They won't eat tofu. They won't eat instant oats. They won't eat brown rice. But again, you look at what the same people eat. They'll eat butter. I'm dead serious. These same people have no problem with putting a little bit of butter in their food. It's a purely refined saturated fat. Go look at the data on that, of what happens when you add extra saturated fat to your diet, of what happens in the liver. Like, this is well documented. This is provable. So other stuff isn't. I'm not saying to even completely avoid, any saturated fat, but it adds up real quick. It's one of the leading causes of our health problems and obesity. Refined sugars right behind it. Those are your big two. Like, those are the two biggest things. Lack of vitamins and minerals because people aren't eating enough fruits and vegetables, all right? That's your big ones. Not GMO versus some herbicides or phosphates or any of that. And look, I'm not telling people to never ever worry about any of those things, but you are nitpicking at that point. But again, the same people will eat foods that we know create problems. They'll do the big ones. Like they want to focus over the small things, but then I'll notice the same person occasionally has some sweets. Okay? They'll eat refined sugar. They'll eat refined saturated fats. They'll eat tons of saturated fat. Right? See, the same person's going around eating steak, eggs, butter. They'll still eat foods with sugar. And then they'll say, but that's in moderation. I'm like, okay, but those are still worse in moderation than the foods you're scared of in moderation. The amount of those things in the other foods are in moderation. Way more moderation than what you're doing. Yeah, people worry about this, and then they wonder why they don't reach their goals. I know people like this, and they still aren't reaching their fitness goals. And you've got to look at them and go, have you considered that maybe you like to focus on really stupid stuff instead of the big stuff? And I honestly think for a lot of people, it is their way to pretend like they care about fitness. Like, I'm going to focus on the most small details that matter almost nothing. It might not matter at all. And I'm going to ignore the big things so I can pretend to be fit and still not be fit. Because I look at the people I see who are making all these claims and doing this, their diet's still not clean. They still eat worse stuff than the things they're scared of. They're still at high body fats. Many of them are still not in good shape. They're not strong. Right? They pretend to care about fitness. It's a form of virtue signaling. And that's all it is. It's fitness virtue signaling. For people who don't actually really care about their goals. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.